we as adults have nothing, smart to say other than just, I, I, I saw your posts over the last couple of days. I'm not surprised that you're spot on as you always are. I always appreciate the things you post. Um, can you share advice with your parents? I love those slides that you just put up about, I didn't even get a chance to copy them, to forward to them, um, about the different ages and your advice as a mental health professional and a member of the community, someone who really has your finger on the pulse of things. What advice would you give to parents, please?
Yeah. Um, I think first, before we are parents, we are people. And maybe just to give ourselves some time, maybe we have to hide in the bathroom and lock the door for a few minutes and feel whatever we need to feel. And then we have to put ourselves to the side for a little bit and just be the parents. Um, I think it's very hard to give advice in times like this because there's no one universal experience. There is no one universal way of dealing with it. Even within one family, different kids might be responding in different ways. Different adults might be responding in different ways. And so that's really an important part, to know that not everyone's going to respond to this in the same way, and that's okay. Um, Sort of related to that, I think it's really important that we create an environment and like an invitation, let's say, not a verbal invitation, but where our kids know that this is something that we can be talking about, but not forcing the conversation, because not everybody wants to talk about it, and certainly not everybody wants to talk about it now. So creating an environment that doesn't start today. Hopefully you've created an environment in your home a long time ago, where your kids know that they can talk to you and they can, you'll hear them. And if they don't want to talk now, there's no expiration date to your openness to hearing from them. Certainly in the coming days, to the extent that someone will have questions, those questions will probably continue. So it's not a one and done conversation. It's, whenever something comes up, and hurts you, that the ideas are hurting you, let's talk about it. Um, it's awful. But another thing that I think matters is remembering that they're kids. And so they might respond to the news, with, let's say, the intensity and the severity that we as adults are responding to the news, but they also might not. And that's okay. In some ways, it might even be better if they're, somehow shielded from it. And kids are also really interesting with like compartmentalizing. They might, have one really heavy, really heartbreaking conversation and then say like, okay, I'm going to go outside and play. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It doesn't mean it means they're kids, and that's also okay. And we don't need to script them in the way that they're going to process this
And
information.
I did some training. I did some training in grief counseling because of the work that I do, not as a professional, just, you know, and I remember watching, a funeral, just what you said. A friend of mine died, and years ago, and he had a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and older kids, and they went out to play during the funeral, and the mom was wise enough to just, she was obviously coached by excellent people.
Yeah.
She she just waved, one of the people went to stop them, and she just waved them off and asked someone to follow them outside. Yeah.
Yeah. We've actually seen a lot of that here with all of the, hundreds of funerals. One of the things, there are many things that are amazing about the IDF, but one of them is that they have an entire unit dedicated, to bereaved families and families of injured soldiers. And so when there's been a funeral, there is always, when it's a military funeral, there's always a team of soldiers that their sole job is to help with the grief process. And in a lot of the funerals, unfortunately, in the last year and counting, they have been fathers and brothers, and so there have been a lot of children at these funerals. And if you pay attention to some of the footage, you'll see a little boy runs out, and there's a chayal in uniform that goes out with him, and the little boy comes back in, and the chayal, because that chayal has been assigned to this little boy. And I think that's also part of us sort of teaching our kids that grief is healthy and that there's no one way to grieve. And so if some of it is sort of tapping in and being sad, that's okay. And if also you want to run outside and go play, that's also okay. They're kids. And you know, it's just, it's heartbreaking that we're in a position that we have to be talking about this. But
Yeah,
as they say in
but
Hebrews,
the parents need the parents. We all, you know, we don't have any small young children now, but you know, kids are all married and out. But like everyone who has kids at home, you just get information, listen to Dr. Aviva and others who can give you good advice, because you know sometimes you know the children are, like you said, the children are children, and they tend to sometimes just want to blow some steam, or I found that they don't even understand what death is. You know, adults have a hard time, you know, when someone passes that we love, and yeah, like part of us, we know it's, you know, it's cognitive dissonance, but we think, yeah, well, man, it can't really be, you know. So like imagine kids, like they don't know what forever means, or they don't.
yeah, I actually have a whole, I mean, I have a bunch of books in my brain that will probably never make it to pages, but I have a dream of one day writing a book about death for children. I have a very strong feelings about the ways in which we talk about death, or more likely don't talk about death. Certainly, like you're saying, among adults, but among children. And I struggle with it because it's the one thing that we know is going to happen to everyone. And it's going to happen to everyone around us. And God willing, if things go according to, you know, derech hateva, according to nature, most likely the first time a child is encountering a death is a grandparent, or a great grandparent. And in those moments when that child is trying to understand almost the ununderstandable, the parents are busy with their own grief and loss and logistics, and they may not be emotionally present to really, you know, teach their child what they want their child to learn. And so I have a chip on my shoulder a little bit about how we don't teach about death to children. But what I would say is this is sort of in our faces in a really blatant way. And so we might be able to use this as a teaching moment.
Exactly.
We can sort of choose what we want to talk about when we talk about death, and we can choose what we don't want to talk about. And so kids, little ones especially, but even old ones, if they're not used to talking about it, they might be really interested in just like the concrete of death, that when we die, the body literally stops working 100%. So they don't see and they don't feel and they don't hear. And so kids will ask, is it cold? Or, you know, is it dark in the
Exactly.
ground? And you'll say, no, because they don't see. So they don't know that it's dark. And no, it's not cold because they don't feel. And in this context, I would say that we can even frame it in some way, sort of wrapped up with the heartbreak of the circumstances. To some degree, there might be comfort, because we don't know what kind of suffering these hostages went through, however old they were. And now that their body doesn't feel anything, you know, we don't have to worry about them. They're not feeling any pain. They're not feeling hunger. They're not feeling fear. For us as adults to even say those words, it's heartbreaking. But for children, it might help explain things to them in a way that they can, not that anybody can make sense of it, but that they could kind of make sense of where they want to sort of put themselves in the spectrum of relating to this tremendous loss.
You know what I used to do? We very sadly in my yeshiva, during the years I was school principal, we lost 3 mothers to cancer in over a 12-year period. And it was my practice. I used to go into the class, especially I called school assemblies, and with middle school kids separately because they process differently. And I would prep the kids for a shiva home, the classmates of my student that was sitting shiva. I would tell them what it's like, you know, what it looks like and what people do and what you do, you know. And one of the things I would do is when the kids, there might be a good message, what you said, Dr. Aviva, about telling the children that they process any way they you know, want to, and there's no right and wrong. I used to tell the kids, okay, Yitzi's coming back tomorrow. And I would literally go to the whiteboard and write, don't talk to me about my mother. I'm sad. I don't want to talk about it. Please ask me questions about my mother. Please make me laugh. I've been sad all week. How dare you make me laugh? My mother just died. You know, I would ask the kids, which is the right response? And I would go by and check all of them. And I said, you know, you're here to support your friend. He can pick any one of these and he can cycle through all 4 of these in a minute. and I got feedback from the kids afterwards, that it was really helpful.
Yeah.
Obviously, I got training from some outstanding people about this, but I mean, it's not my space, but I had no choice. I was a school principal. Of course, we brought in Chai Lifeline, great bereavement counselors, but they leave. And I think parents, I think that's also an important point. If you're fortunate enough to have someone that can talk to your kids about bereavement or watch something with them, but remember, you're there when the advice leaves, and leave the door open for them to come talk to you and tell them that any response that they have
That's exactly right.
is okay.
I also think there might be, I don't believe in being dishonest with our children. I don't believe in sugarcoating the truth, but I also believe in sharing with our kids what's developmentally appropriate, what's emotionally appropriate. And so in this instance, I would say there are parts of the process over the next few days that are somewhat predictable and parts of it that are enormously unpredictable. And the unpredictable parts are the ones that are probably going to be more painful. We don't know in what state Hamas is going to transfer bodies to the Red Cross. We don't know if it's going to be in coffins, in a body bag, on a stretcher. We don't know. And I would avoid calling our children's attention to that
Right.
part. Where I would direct attention, if it's appropriate, for the specific kids, and you have to know your kids or your students or whoever it is, I would focus on what the plans are. Today, they just published that they have a whole plan in place for how the IDF is going to receive the bodies from the Red Cross. The IDF is going to be meeting them at a specific place, just like they met, with the live hostages, but they're going to have a whole team of the Rabbanut Hatzfa'i, the military rabbinate. They have already prepared liturgy and ceremonies to say when they get the bodies. They have coffins prepared, and whatever state the bodies are delivered to the IDF will put them in proper coffins and drape an Israeli flag over it, meaning we can talk to our kids about the plans that we have to do kavod hames, to honor our dead, that we're going to bring them for proper burial, that we will say all the different tefillot that we need to say, the prayers that we need to say for them. And it's sad, and for some people that might be gory, but to the extent that you have a child that wants details, those are details that I think we can focus on, because they show that it's a team effort. They show that we're doing something litov, or to whatever extent we're doing something for good. I would really encourage, again, I don't believe in lying to our kids or hiding things from our kids. I would really, really encourage parents, teachers, schools to not allow the kids to see or know about the process from Hamas to the Red Cross, because we really don't know what that is, and it has the potential to be, it's all awful, but
Right.
that has the
It could
potential to
be
be awful, and I would stay away
what
from
they
that. And to the
did.
extent
What they
that we
did
have
with the
pressure.
live hostages was just.
Right, 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 right.
I'm gonna. I know it's late at night for you, and thank you again. I'm gonna go back on after I say good night to Dr. Aviva and thank you for your time, and I'm going to talk about the theological things, how to answer, how could God do this, and things of that nature. I'll do that myself, so that I don't take time from you. Could you just give a brief synopsis of those fantastic slides that you posted about 4 to 8? The different ages. What you would recommend to tell the kids. I'm going to do my best to post and disseminate them.
Sure.
It's Dr. Aviva. I should know this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Aviva Goldstein, right?
Very creative.
There you go.
Very creative
It works.
name.
Go ahead.
I'll also just say that because there were so many conversations that I was having over the last few days of parents and teachers really wanting some guidelines, in between appointments today, I scribbled, some notes. So I have more stuff that I want to put together. I don't know if I'll get to it tonight or maybe tomorrow, but I'm hoping to put as much out there as possible.
Right.
If it helps, if it resonates, great. If not, let me know how I could be more helpful.
Please tag
But
Dr. Aviva. Please tag me on it. I'll do my best to get it out.
Okay, I will. But one of the things that I'm hoping to find the words to be a little bit more eloquent about, because I really just did some chicken scratch, is a theological question a little bit, but it's the humility and the power that comes when a parent says, I don't know. that our kids might ask us, how could people be
Exactly.
so evil? Why do bad things happen to good
Right.
people? Why did they take these babies? Right. And the truth of the matter is we don't know.
Don't know.
We don't understand evil. And we also don't understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world in the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. And so there might be maybe a fear or a hesitation for a parent to say, I don't know, because it leaves sort of, it's ambiguous and it's unpredictable and it's amorphous. But we actually know from research, especially with adolescents, that adolescents really
Respect.
respect
Yeah.
teachers, but also parents when they say, I don't know. And maybe I don't know.
Or
But
I'm
the
struggling with this
accepting of
too.
the I don't know
Right.
is my way of understanding I'm not running the world and I can't know
Right.
everything.
And that I'm struggling with this too. It's perfectly fine to tell your kids, be honest, be
Yeah.
honest with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found
Yeah.
I found not from research, anecdotally, I found that that's especially kids find it so refreshing, adolescents, when adults say, I don't know, Dr. Pelkowitz shared an incredible story with me. You know the one with Rabbi Schechter, Rabbi Schechter? She was at a,
I know most of his stories at this point, but share it so every other
go,
people
you
can hear.
tell her, go
No, no,
ahead,
no, you
please.
tell it. You
No,
tell
no,
it.
so he told me that he was at a conference, a Nefesh conference of Orthodox mental health professionals, and Rav Hershel Schechter Shlita, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University, was fielding questions, and there was a woman there who had been religiously observant, and he hadn't seen her for a number of years. She abandoned religious practice and didn't really feel at home at the Nefesh conference, so she stopped coming. He saw her at a years later, and she did, because she still wasn't religiously observant, but she came back, and Rav Hershel Shekel was asked a few questions, and he said, to a few of them at the beginning, he said, I don't know, I really need to look it up. And at a later session, I'll take a few minutes and answer them. And the woman told Dr. Pelkowitz that every time the rabbi said, I don't know, I took another baby step towards religious observance. That's what she said. Every time I heard this great man whose breadth of learning, Torah learning, and interpersonal relationships and everything else is just so incredible. His humility, and to a tiny degree, I think we do our children a service by saying we struggle. The Moshe Rabbeinu, I always say Moshe Rabbeinu struggled with this. He asked Hashem, "Hodieni nasrachecha," tell me what you do. Rashi says, the commentaries say that he was asking him why seemingly bad things happen to good people. So it was obviously out front of mind to him, and he just popped the question when he had an opportunity to. So quickly, if I can ask you to just go through those developmental points, please. I'm so sorry for that. I
Yeah,
really,
sure.
really
No, no,
appreciate
no,
the
it's
time.
fine. I actually have my chicken scratches over here in some of my notes. Um, I think the big emphasis is sort of dividing kids into categories. Younger kids, somewhere around 4 to 8 years old. Older kids are somewhere from 9 and older. But again, you'll know your kid better. You'll know which category they fit into. Younger children are much more concrete and much more simple in what they're looking for, whereas older kids, you can give more context, there can be more conversation, and they probably have more emotional awareness than younger kids do. So just sort of figuring out where your kid fits in that spectrum. um, the talking to little ones about just, when something sad happens, it's okay to feel sad. I spoke about this a little bit earlier today. It's okay if our kids are sad, because this is a very sad thing, and if they feel those emotions, it's a good sign. It means their system is working. By the way, if they're not sad, it's also okay. They may just want to be checking out of it. But our
Exactly.
job is not to make them not sad, because this is a very legitimately sad situation. Giving some language around, you might know that some people were taken. You may have seen their pictures. Their families were very worried about them. They're coming back now. They're not alive, and so they can't be hugged anymore. But now their families don't need to worry about where they are. And softening the language in the appropriate way for your specific child. Focusing on the people that are helping the families. There's a whole team of people that are waiting to help the sad families, and there's a whole team of people waiting to help the people that want to help, and they're going to be providing them with, dinner, so they don't have to worry about dinner, and they're going to be helping them, just sort of fleshing out the helpers. It's the sort of the famous Mr. Rogers quote, but it's based in reality. older kids, sort of normalizing that it's fine to feel whatever feeling that you're feeling. Very often it's a mix of emotions, and that's also okay. And just making it normal, making it okay. There's no right or wrong way to feel. There may be a right or wrong way to behave. Just because you're angry doesn't mean that you can hit, but you're absolutely allowed to feel angry, and drawing the distinction between that. Again, sort of creating that invitation to conversation. You might hear kids talking about stuff in school. Feel free to we can talk about it when you get home. Either if you have a question about something that somebody said, or you just want to share it with me, that's also okay for younger kids, but older kids can hold on to that throughout the day. If somebody tells them something at 11 o'clock in the morning, they'll remember by the time they get home from school to talk to the parents about it. And then also just normalizing, and this is for the older kids, there are ways to create language around it for little ones, but normalizing that part of life is also dealing with the hard stuff. And saying, I'm proud of you for dealing with the hard stuff. It's hard, but this is part of what it means to be strong, and part of something that you care about, the Jewish people, or, freedom, or whatever is the language that you use in your home. And to sort of say that we can't really avoid the hard stuff in life. Obviously, this is an extraordinary example, but it's part of what makes us whole. And just normalizing that for kids. There's like a million others, but I'll try to get it into.
Your chicken scratching is working just fine.
Yeah.
Doctor, thank you so very much. Hashem should give you strength and wisdom, continued wisdom, and
Amen.
to everyone
I will just say
get the message out to friends.
To whatever extent that we've been davening for miracles, at the point that we know that miracles are kind of out of the question at this point. I literally just came from teaching in seminary, so we're talking about but what do you daven for now?
Right.
We can daven that the mourners find comfort.
Exactly.
We can daven that we find strength in each other. We can daven that there's refuat hanefesh, refuat aguf, healing of body and soul. Not, by the way, not just for the mourners, but for all of us that are feeling.
Yeah. I'm just going to close. It's a tiny bit of humor, I guess, and humility, and to tell all of you folks that everything Dr. Aviva said is so wise, but don't expect like a perfect response to what they say. If you follow the script, that you might get like a curveball from the kids. By 9/11, our yeshiva was very small at the time. There were about 5 classes. We had less than 100 kids, 100 children or so. So I locked the front door, told everybody that I put a sign on the door. I sent an email to the parents. The kids don't know. I want the parents to tell them at home. And I sealed the building, so to speak, because I didn't want, getting this horrible news to come out. So the next morning when the kids came, I explained to them why I didn't tell them. And I sent links to the parents on how to speak to the kids the day before. So that night, I just wanted to get some feedback. So I called a few parents in the school and I asked them how the kids processed what I said. I just wanted to know for the future, was it effective or not? So he said, one of the parents said that his 3rd grader came home and said, Rabbi Horowitz told us a few times that we're safe, and he's going to do everything he can to keep us safe. He said about a 3rd or 4th time Rabbi Horowitz said, you're safe, I started getting very nervous. It was really funny that, that was his take on it, and that's okay. So I'm saying, don't expect, just like you don't have like cue cards, your kids certainly don't. So you can expect anything from them. And your job is just to try to help them through it. Dr. Aviva, Mazlim Bracha. Thank you so much.
Amen. We shall have healing.
Be well. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.